So I'm going to go over some of my live the bike hands. Just because I beat somebody in a hand doesn't mean I'm better than them or I'm outplaying them. It's just like one hand of many we're going to play in lifetime. We're all going to outplay each other. And for the hands where I lose the guy, they can fuck off. But all right, I'm going to start the hands off and go through my thought process. So his first hand was with against Alec Torelli. So he goes on the button, he folded him on the button, he steals, obviously, with queen ten of diamonds. I pick up kings. We're about 200 big blinds effective. I do not 3-bet to 20, I 3-bet to about 80, I believe. Then a flop. It's triple coordinated. A flop texture like this, obviously, if he has a coordinated hand, he could flop a pair in a straight draw or two pair plus. If he has unmade hand, he obviously missed a continuation bet. He just calls, floating me in position, probably trying to take away the pot. He turns a double gut shot. If he continued the flop, I presume that he has something to do with the board. With the texture 8-7-5, it's a little bit less scary than 8-6-5. Because if he flopped a straight, he would have to have 6-9 or 6-4. It's just a very minor texture difference. Of course, with an overpair, you always risk, getting beaten a triple coordinated board. I'm going to check. He bets, trying to blow me off the hand. He would have to have a 6, like ace-6 suited or pocket sixes. Or if he drew on that flop, he could have like jack-9, 10-9. Or if he has jack-10, he obviously has the nuts. I make the call, and I'm a believer where you better be convinced that he really has it if you're going to call the turn and if you're going to face a river bet. That if you were going to fold the river, you might as well just fold the turn, and even if you're wrong, you're losing a smaller pot. It's not always going to be the case, but it's a really devastating thing if you call the turn and you actually have winner and you fold the river. So I just wasn't convinced. I called, and he said, nice hand. He actually did an analysis on the hand in his channel. So this next hand I was against Brad Owen. This was Vloggers Week a couple years ago. So I'm going to mention when the mistake happens on my end, this hand. Brad's stealing nines, of course. I think I was under gun straddle. And defend with ace-8 suited. Flop a flush draw, he flops a set. He did steal on the button, so he does have a wide range. Of course, you see the discrepancy between the last hand and this hand, where Alec didn't have anything and was trying to blow me off the hand, and Brad just crushes. I just called. There's a lot of draws. I'm out of position. The bet was small enough. And here I'm drawing dead. And this was just a mistake on my end in general, but it's more subtle than just like the pairs board and have the nut flush draw. So I'm out of position. When Brad bets, I think he has something of value, but especially out of position, you need to be more wary that you're going to get paid and not just get paid. Like if you get there, your opponent doesn't crush you. So unfortunately, I did call, which obviously in retrospect, I probably should just let it go. But I figured that if I hit the ace, I was going with it, or if I hit a heart, I was going with it. If he steals on the button, it's less likely he has a full house, but there's the Doomsday card. And for camera, I just go all in. I wasn't going to fold to a raise anyway. And then he stacks me, but this is just a big thing where, yeah, when you're out of position and you're unsure if you're going to get paid off, and there's a chance that he could, have a nutted hand already, probably should let it go on the turn. So here was also Vlogger's week. The hand against Trooper, pick up sevens under the gun, which is a bit loose to open, but you're on camera, so whatever. Back to Trooper in the big blind. Ace Queen off. He flops top top of a polarized situation where his defense can easily have high cards. Goes check check on the turn. He cleverly checks. I bet small. He check raises. It was a mistake for me to call without even seeing the whole card. I just somehow, for some reason, I thought he wouldn't have this in his line. And I get bailed out by a fake out. So he bets, but it's hard for him to have a nutted hand on the turn unless it's like, a set. If he has like a one pair hand or a top pair hand, then I'm thinking I could blow him off the hand, which I do, because it's hard for him to check raise with like ace king in that spot. So I made a mistake on the turn calling check raise. I got bailed out by the river that I had a bluff card. And I get him to fold. So here was a hand with Ryan Fee, Israeli Ron, and SoFlo. Ryan Fee played the hand extremely well. I don't know. I still probably would do what I did, but it's up for debate, I guess. I didn't really discuss this hand with anyone. So if it were three-way or less, I might have represented in C-bet, but four-way, I just didn't. Checked around the turn. Israeli Ron is ahead. But none of us makes a motion. So the river was very interesting. It was a 10 of diamonds. It puts 3 diamonds on the board. If it was check to me, I was going to check and try to induce a bluff from Antonio or was checked around because aces and tens with a queen kicker. I think I only get called by a worse 10 or a hero call on triple coordinated board. It's pretty tough. But Ryan bets out, and I don't know what to say. With two people left to act after me, it was really hard for me to call, even if I didn't believe him. If it was just him betting, then I'm definitely calling. And there I lay down winner. Israeli Ron thinks a bit, but it's just really hard because there are so many hands you could be betting for value and just like backdoored into this hand. So Ryan Fee, one of the best players to play on Live at the Bike, outplays the field. There's a hand I played against Zach Elwood. I didn't know who he was at the time. Folded me on the button. I raised with kings. Elwood undergun straddle. We had talked about this hand after that day and also when Zach Elwood was on PokerCraft. Zach Elwood flops an overcard and a gut shot to the queen. Zach Elwood has a tells book called Reading Poker Tells. It's an updated version of Mike Caro's book of tells. Again, I didn't know who he was. I was trying to take lines that were more aggressive. Usually in lower stakes, when people are less aggressive than the higher stakes, you can get thin value. People wondered why I bet the ace here. It's because if he called the flop, he's kind of representing a queen X or like jack 10 or maybe a pair that doesn't believe, and you're going to call one street. So I was trying to get value out of my kings. You can take a more conservative line and chuck the turn and call the river if he bets. That being said, Zach Elwood, tells master, makes a play at me. And it was a miscommunication, sort of like he wasn't sure what I had and thought he can get me to fold like a queen or a 9 or even an ace, which if I knew who he was, there's no way I'm folding. But I'll give him credit. His check raise is a very good amount because if I call that turn, I would essentially have to call that river. You can see my facial expression. I don't really believe him, but this was the first time that I met Zach. And that's the importance of doing research on the people you play against. This was very, I guess it was about midway in the session, and Zach also said he was playing pretty snug, which that also weighed into my decision. But again, I put myself in this tough spot by trying to bet thin. If you don't want to get blown off the hand, you could easily just check the turn and call the river. But as we've seen with Garrett Adelstein many times, he has the read and just doesn't follow through because it's just too hard. And especially in the mid stakes, that's where you find the least amount of bluffs, in my opinion. Like, In the low stakes, you get a lot of spamish bluffs. In the higher stakes, you get more constructed bluffs. But good job, Zach Elwood. Makes me lay down the best hand and has that smile. I hate you. I'm just kidding. We're buddies. So Luke picks up aces under the gun. I want to try to blow him off aces. No, I'm just kidding. I just 3-bet him with king queen suited. Just so you guys know, a lot of us play looser on camera than we normally do, because we do want to put on a show. So I 3-bet him here, and Luke just calls. Three spade board. So just bluff at it and basically c-bet 100. Obviously, if he calls, I'm pretty much done with the hand, except something happens. A 4 spade comes out, and then he bets into me, and I just didn't believe him. And I go all in. Unfortunately, Luke knows who I am and didn't believe me back. But unfortunately, once you're a known, especially if you've been playing on camera for a while, you just can't get away with much. So he does call, and thankfully I still had a flush draw to chop, but good call, Luke. And you just have to adjust after you've been playing on camera. You just can't get away with a lot of stuff, which, you know, I've warned people about. So here I'm playing heads up with Doug Polk, and this was a hand which I asked people, respected people about, and they told me my move was outdated. So Doug raised on the button. I 3-bet with 8s from the big blind. Doug just calls. So I'm out of position. I'm definitely going to c-bet. It's a pretty dry board. And Doug's going to raise me here. So my thinking process was that if he raises me, he could easily have a spade draw. He could be trying to blow me off the hand. The deuce not being a spade means I'm not crushed in the hand, so to say. If it was queen 6-2 and the queen was not a spade, he could have like queen x of spades. And gets me, I move all in. What I missed this hand is that I guess in this era, I'm not a heads up specialist. I did play heads up online, but Doug is a heads up specialist. So I guess if you have a 6 or even a 2, you would more likely call. He could be dry bluffing, in which I didn't want to like face difficult cards. Kind of like a king would have been a tough card if I just called. I did the 8 of spades, which gives me an extra 5% backdoor equity. And yeah, basically what I was told is my shove there was a bit outdated, like, I don't know, 2010-ish, 2005-ish. because most of the hands I would have beat would just call the flop. So that's where Doug got me. There's a pot limit on my hand that Jay Nandez ripped me on, and Joey defended me. So there was a cutoff straddle, and Jay Nandez also did the analysis wrong. He got the action wrong. There was a cutoff straddle, and Brian raises a 20 on the button, which I believe was a min raise. So then Drago re-raises from under the gun, and I call in the straddle. Because if Brian min raises the button, I feel like it's less likely that he's going to back raise. Jay Nandez ripped me for playing a hand selection like this, and Joey defended me, whereas in live poker, if you have position and you have ace-x suited and reasonable Broadway, you can still flop very big and flop high equity, in which I do get lucky in the hand post flop, but these are the kind of boards you're looking for. This is where the rundowns in PLO are incredibly deceptive. So from Drago's point of view, he flops pretty strong. He has open-ended and one pair. Or he actually has a wrap, sorry. You can get a king, queen, jack, 9, or 7. But this is in PLO where you get trumped with the wrap cards. If somebody has a nut flush draw and similar straight draws, they're going to be frequently ahead of the wrap. In this case, once the dust clears, I'm a 2-1 favorite. And this is the downside of these wrap hands. And I'm the best of all time because I win 2 runs. But yeah, in position, ace-x suited with high cards. In action games like these, I'm an advocate of. So this hand is limit hold'em. Did mostly no limit and 1 PLO hand and 1 limit hold'em. There is a kill, so it's 30-60, and I have king jack suited. So a lot of action. One thing in limit hold'em that's different from no limit is the bets are smaller, so if you could take down uncontested pots, it's far more valuable, and also the blinds are larger relative to the bets. So stealing the blinds or taking uncontested pots is more valuable than in no limit. So checked to Chava, he bluffs at it. So unfortunately me, this opened up the top straight, but I still call king high. Yeah, crowd goes wild, but it's just limit hold'em. No, but seriously, it's a very polarized situation where he cold called pre-flop, and then if he's gonna barrel, his hand is not on the top end. Um, so I could beat stuff like Jack 10, Queen Jack suited, etc., etc. And the way he bet was just not convinced. So these